What's up, sneaky people? It's your boy FB Kicks and Gear, and welcome to my channel. I am back with another legit checking guide, and it's been a while since I've touched this shoe, but I figured let's check back in since I'm already doing a bunch of Travis Scott ones. Let's check back in with the reverse Mochas, probably one of the crowd favorites from my channel last year before it got the axe. I did a whole bunch of real versus fake guides. I really broke it down for you guys, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So on my left we have my authentic pair, 100% authentic, and as you guys can see, they're still DS. I have not worn these yet, but I plan on wearing them this summer when it gets a little bit warmer out. And this pair right here is the rep pair. I'll do a little quick 360, and always remember, guys, whenever you see a rep on my channel, I'm going to post a little screen grab of the Instagram account where you can find all the detailed image of the shoe that you need to see so you can get a closer look and do your research, because sometimes a lot of the stuff that I bring up in passing in the video is kind of hard to get a handle on, so up close pictures really help. So with that said, I'm going to leave a little screenshot up here on the screen here. I'm going to let a little screenshot appear on the screen here for Pick Pop's Instagram account, and that's where you'll see all of the detailed images of the shoe, and you guys can do your own research in regards to that. With all that said, let's get into the breakdown. I'm not going to do too much on the box. They're the same color, they're the same size, and I will release old real versus fake videos where I do a detailed breakdown between the box colors and the labels and everything like that. So I won't waste time in this video with that. So let's get straight into the sneakers. So here's our first look at the shoes side by side. Now, Travis Scott 1 reverse Mochas are a pretty widely rep shoe. There are a ton of different batches out there, and I've gone into really detailed breakdowns of what are the real surefire ways that you can establish what an authentic pair is versus a fake pair. And I'm going to do the same thing here, except I'm going to give you an abbreviated version with the really quick, hard-hitting tips that you can use. Now, in the past, I've gone into some really detailed breakdowns of what the differences are between a real and a fake Travis Scott 1 reverse Mocha. But now that we fast forward to 2023, I've probably got 7 or 8 of these comparisons under my belt, and I will begin to upload some of the older comparisons from my last channel here. But you guys get the benefit of me being able to break this down relatively quickly now, as opposed to the 20-25 minute videos that I used to do in the beginning, because I was really pulling back the layers. So let's get straight into the shoe, and I will tell you briefly what I'll be talking about, and I'll show you how they match up. If you recall from the original videos on the authentic pair, what I like to compare to the reps are the shape, the colors, and not just the color of like the nubuck on the toe and the sides. I compare the color of the reverse swoosh, I can compare the color of the sole, and I also compare the color of the white leather, because in the past, for the older batches that I did, that I built my legit checking series on, all of those things varied slightly to greatly depending on the quality of the batch. So there's a range that they can be for reps. You just have to make sure that you are looking for those things when you're doing your legit checking. But in addition to color, we like to look at the shape, specifically on the toe box. That's a very important thing. We like to look at the rigidity of the sole. You see there's very little flex here. And we also like to take a look at our tongue tag. And I have to really break down this tip every time I talk about it, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion. So I'll break it down very briefly here. When it comes to the Nike Air tag, there is a set amount of spacing and positioning that you want to see between the tag itself and the side Cactus Jack tag here. And it applies to fragments, it applies to the OGs, it applies to the Phantoms, it applies to all of the lows. And I'll tell you what those parameters are, but that's what I want to emphasize here. And with all of that said, maybe there was some other stuff that I left out, but let's just start talking about the shape. So now when it comes to shape, there's predominantly only one thing that I look at because I feel like it's the easiest thing to look at, and that is the toe box shape. With Travis Scott ones, you want to see a toe box that is not too slim, not too tall, but most importantly, you want to see this belly shape when you look at it from the side. What I mean by that is that you just see a slight protrusion, and you see it on both shoes. You see that it's not straight up, you see that it's not too curved, but it's definitely there. And with the Travis Scott ones, usually you see the height being a little bit too tall, but you also see the leather coming a little bit too high up onto the nubuck of the toe. So we see what the authentic pair looks like. When you look at the rep, you see that it definitely has that bulge that we like to look for, but I would say that the leather just comes up a little bit too high up onto the top of the toe box when you compare it to the authentic pair. You can see that it just angles slightly up more. So I have trained myself to see that specifically, and it also helps that I have an authentic pair at home that I can reference, but that's definitely something you want to look at. Everything else in terms of shape, at least, is hard for me to kind of point out, but the toe box is really easy to analyze, and you know that if you see it's too thick, or if you see it's too slim, or if you see that the leather is riding all the way up to the top of the toe box, you know that you're probably looking at a fake. So that's the easiest thing. This definitely not the worst. Definitely gets the shape correct, which is great. You see that bulge, but it creeps up a little bit too high, and that's something that I see it's pretty consistent on fake Travis Scott ones. Now we're going to go from the shape to the color, and the easiest way to do the color is to do this side by side, because this is usually where you get to see the differences. Now I don't know how well it is coming off on camera, but there are slight color differences in a lot of the different areas here, and maybe we'll do it like this so you guys get a better view. So our top pair is the authentic pair, and our bottom pair is the rep. Now when I hold it like this, what differences do you guys see? Because I do see some very subtle differences when it comes to color, and I think we can start predominantly in this area where you see all Travis Scott One Low reverse mochas, they struggle with the reverse swoosh color, and it's really close, but you can see that the rep is just a bit paler than the authentic pair, which has almost like more of a creamier, more vibrant hue to it. But when you look at the comparison of the reverse swooshes to the sole, it's the exact opposite. You see that the sole on the rep is definitely a little bit more blushed. It's a little bit more vibrant. It's got more of a hue to it, while the sole of the authentic pair is pale and less vibrant. So really pay attention to that contrast between the sole and the reverse swoosh, because when you put them side by side, it becomes pretty apparent. There are very slight differences in the color of the sole as well. You've got more of a reddish chocolatey brown on the bottom of the sole here, and on the authentic pair it's more of a neutral grayish brown, that mocha that we're used to seeing. And when we bring it to the back, you can see another difference in color. Obviously it's more apparent about the outsoles, although it's not hugely visible, but it's more apparent here. Another thing that the reps tend to get slightly differently is the white leather used on the reps is a warmer white than the white used on the authentic pair, and you can see on the authentic pair it's almost like a bright white, while the reps are a off-white-ish type of white, and it's pretty apparent when you put them side by side. It's almost as if off-whites might not be the right word. It's like a darker white, like there's a slight gray undertone to the white leather. So that's something that I have noticed across the board for all reverse Mocha reps. I've never ever seen one that has one that matches. Obviously this is a small detail, and it probably might be hard for you to actually hone in on that if you don't have an authentic pair, but it's definitely something that if you can think of a bright white leather, that's what the authentic pair is. And while we're on the inside view of the shoe, you want to look at the cactus jack, specifically its positioning, and you want to make sure that this stitch right here is engaging the C at some point, just like here. And it can vary pretty drastically depending, but usually on size 11 and below, you will always see this C engaging with the strip, this strip of stitching, just like on my authentic pair. And while we're at it, while we're focusing on this area, you can also see a very slight difference in the color of the nubuck. Now, this nubuck is not going to be a consistent color across the board, but I do find that the reps tend to have a lighter nubuck across the board, while the authentic pair has a little bit more richness to it. And if you look at the toe box, you can see that as well. But that's pretty much it for the colors. The last thing that I want to talk about, or one of the last things I want to talk about, is the tag. And I briefly talked about it in the beginning, but the general rule of thumb when you're legit checking Travis Scott Jordan 1 lows is when you take the left shoe. So on here, it's your right, but if you take the left shoe and you spread out the tongue like this, if you have a size 7 all the way up to 12.5, you are going to see that these are going to be, this tag and this tag are going to be pretty close to each other. Now, sometimes you'll see a little bit of a gap in the body here, especially when you start getting closer to that size 11. It can vary a little bit more, and you get past 11 to 12 and 12.5. But generally what you're going to see is the corner of this tag being very close to here. Very close. So you see what it looks like here. This is also pretty acceptable on the other shoe. Notice how there's a gap in the body of the tag versus here, but the corner is very close. Now, when you take a look at the rep, you see this gap right here. This gap, while not super huge and not super noticeable, this is a gap that I would not expect to see in a size 11. Now, when you get past size 11, you get past size 12, you get into 13 and up, this gap is more than acceptable. It happens. But I would tend to want to see below a size 13 a little bit less space here. I want to see this right to the point where I almost don't want to see the cross stitching here on the tongue. I want to see this being as close to this as possible. You will see a gap sometimes, but it will not be a huge gap. So when you look at these, you can see that the spacing is different. And while not 99.999% foolproof, because everybody's gonna have a different definition of what a big gap is, I always lead with that gap when I'm looking for Travis Scott Jordan 1s, regardless of the release. Regardless. So pay attention to that. It is a very good legit checking indicator, especially if you don't have access to an authentic pair. Start there. Analyze the gap. It shouldn't be massive. It shouldn't be big. It's even bigger on the side, and this again is something that I would not expect to see in a size 11, which these are. In a size 13, absolutely. A size 14, 100%. But this gap is a little bit too big, and I would want to see this corner much closer to this, to the point where you're not really seeing much of the cross stitching going across there. From here, we'll do a quick blacklight test. See anything that lights up on the authentic pair. I don't know if you guys can see it, but towards the heel, we do have a paint correction mark. This is normal on authentic pairs. No stitching is really lighting up. You're seeing the Nike AirTag light up pretty well. Same for the Cactus Jack tag. But other than that, nothing crazy. More paint correction on the front toe there. More on the back heel and on the side. That is normal on the authentic pair. So what we want to see on the rep is that the Nike AirTag lights up, this tag lights up, and maybe some paint correction on the sole. Interesting. So let me see if I get this right. No, that's right. The Cactus Jack is lighting up, not as brightly as the Nike AirTag, but it does. No paint correction. And that's that for the Blacklight test. And for the most part, that's it for the shoe itself. There's not really that much to go over after that. The squeeze test passes. Both shoes are very strong and rigid, just like you would expect on a high tier rep and on an authentic shoe. But other than that, there really isn't that much difference. Reverse Mochas are really hard to legit check on their face, but it's really the small details that you can get into where you can start separating the real from the fake. So wow, I haven't done one of these videos for this shoe in a while, and I forgot how much I really enjoy this shoe. So I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Stay tuned for more legit checking guides. I will be uploading my old legit checking guides too, so you know, over the next couple of months you guys will have tons of references for these shoes. I probably have 7 or 8 videos of these shoes in general. Stay tuned. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and remember, if you go to the Instagram account that's going to pop up here, you can see all of the detailed photos of these shoes, and you can collect as much information as you need. Look at the details, pay attention, know what you're looking for, so you know that you are spending your money on the product that you want. So with all that said, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.